So let's have a look at what we're doing today. The canvas we have is on Paris Peace Conference and the League of Nations. So I do have a map here in front of me, all right, to kind of like just give everyone an overview of where some of these countries are. We're gonna say quite a bit about Germany. Okay, this is the lines drawn after World War One. All right, and then we have a chapter overview here, which we see Paris Peace Conference right in the middle, and then it branches out into the TOV, outcomes of the Paris Peace Conference, as well as the aims of the historical actors. We'll talk about the aims of the historical actors first, right? And then when we're done, we'll go through the terms of the TOV very quickly, outcomes of the peace. I just realized the typo, Paris Peace Conference, then followed by, okay, we'll talk about the League of Nations itself. Okay, so underneath we have a bit of a timeline. So I'll make reference to the map, the timeline as we go along. I'll start with the timeline because the first part to the chapter when we start looking at the causes of World War One, it's not really something that will be tested for our syllabus, all right? But we do need to know briefly at least who played important roles in the outbreak of World War One. And when we are trying to understand the war guilt clause, for example, in the one of the terms of the TOV, there needs to be an understanding why the Germans felt it was unfair, why the French felt it was appropriate, really because okay, we also know that there were other countries that played a very important role right at the beginning when when the Archduke Franz Ferdinand was killed. Germany did give strong backing to Austria to pretty much do as they would have wanted to. And this was something that definitely encouraged Austria to issue that ultimatum that ultimately was rejected by Serbia and prompted Austria to declare war on Serbia. But still, that's Austria declaring war on Serbia and Russia then subsequently mobilizing to give support to their ally Serbia. Okay, for Germany or for France for that matter, they feel that Germany played that critical role because Germany decided to launch a preemptive attack on France through Belgium because in their mind or in their military plan, the Schiffland plan, if they were to engage in a war with Russia, they know that Russia and France, they do have a treaty. Therefore, it made sense to them to knock France out of the war as soon as possible. And that's why they attacked France. So from how the French viewed it, yep, it did look like it was a somewhat unprovoked attack. For Germany, when they looked at the outbreak of war, they will see that it was Germany, it was Austria declaring war first. Okay, why am I telling you all these things? Okay, so I did mention a couple of things. The assassination of the Archduke caused the breakout of the war. The system of alliances drew everyone in. German slight excitement or German support for Austria was a byproduct of years or decades of being investing heavily in their dreadnoughts, investing heavily in their weapons, such that they are in a position where they can actually they wanted to actually flex the military might that they have been working on. So all these things played important roles in leading up to the outbreak of World War One. Okay, and then we'll move quickly. I hope that didn't take too long. The war was largely a stalemate. A lot of times, it was trench warfare. The Germans got stuck in Belgium, in France for many years. Okay, so just a bit of a highlight reel. You see that in 1917, America joins on the side of Britain and France. Even prior to this, America did show more support to Britain and France. One of the reason why America was dragged into the war to begin with was because an American ship, all right, dispatching food to Britain was attacked by a German sub, all right, and therefore America found themselves in a position dragged into the war. This later plays out quite a bit, whereby America in 1939, when Germany again is in the war with Britain, America was very reluctant to be that to deliver food, material, war material to Britain because they didn't want to find themselves dragged into another conflict. So America joins the war, turning the tide firmly onto the side of the alliance of Britain and France. Okay, Russia in 1918, in 1917, Russia undergoes their February and October Revolution, and therefore, once the Bolsheviks were in power in Russia, they hurriedly wanted to exit the war. So Russia signed the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, okay, and the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk was a treaty that Germany, as victors, imposed on the Russians, and the Germans extracted lots and lots of resources, land, and people. Right. So some of the strong arguments made to say that yes, the TOV was definitely fair because that's how treaties are signed. Okay, when one party wants to leave the war, one party is obviously on the defensive, one side in the war is definitely about to lose. Therefore, that's what you do. And based on those terms that was set out by the Germans on the Russians, right? A year later, when the TOV was signed and the French and the British wanted to impose something along the same lines, it was reasonable, it was fair based on the new parameters drawn by the by the Germans themselves. Okay, I keep blaming the Russians. All right, so 1918, Russia signs Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. The next thing that happened is that Germany signs the armistice, right, in the final days of the conflict. What was happening was that there was intense instability in Germany itself. Okay, already on the war front, they were struggling dealing with America. Germany, the Germans themselves were living under a blockade for a few years already. It was severe, and there were parts of Germany where there was starvation. And then there were mutinies occurring through in parts of Germany. There was communist uprisings happening. In the Spartacist uprising, for example. So Germany was in disarray. Right, the Kaiser found himself in an unfavorable position. His okay, I can't quite remember the name of the prince, but Prince Max, I think. Then, all right, gave up power in favor, okay, when Kaiser fled, gave power to the politicians, okay, that were influential in Germany. The SDP, Social Democratic Party, SPD actually, were the ones who played an instrumental role in trying to extract Germany out of the war in signing the armistice, and that that those events happening from 1918 to 1919 to when TOV was signed, that's when your stab in the back theory was sort of given birth to, the stab in the back. Because for the Germans, they didn't actually see Germany, all right, having to retreat, all the German soldiers having to retreat all the way back to Germany. Right? So why is it suddenly that they are being imposed such terms? Okay, the newspapers were not carrying stories of their imminent defeat. Suddenly they hear that they were defeated, the Kaiser fled, and then you have the politicians signing the armistice. Seemingly seem so it could have been seen that the military was being betrayed by the politicians, right? And this gave birth to the stab in the back theory, okay, that we tend to hear of. And this also forever plagued the Weimar government, the Social Democratic Party, right? Because they were the ones who was, in a way, holding the bag when the war came to an end. They were not the ones who actually provoked the war, they inherited the war, but yet because they inherited the war, they were in a very difficult position, right? So I've kind of alluded to a few things here. So now we're going to pop by and look at aims of the, okay, we're going to look here at aims of the historical actors. Let's use a different color, right? Aims of the historical actors. Okay, really what we see, three characters, Clemenceau, Lloyd George, Woodrow Wilson, all having different aims representing their respective countries based on the experiences and the historical experience of the war, the circumstance right at the end of the war. So for France, you would know things like, okay, they suffered immensely, okay, in terms of casualties, in terms of their population was smaller than Germany as well. So, when you have 1.5 million casualties, okay, as a fraction of their 45 million population, it would weigh heavily on them. Uh, okay, okay, the parts of France thoroughly uh, damaged, right? The the red zone, right? The Germans were deliberately destroying parts of France during the war. Okay, it was a very long war. The trenches were dug in France. In fact, one of the first few things that, when Lloyd George, Woodrow Wilson came by to France to sign the Paris Peace Conference, the first few things that Clemenceau did was to bring them on a tour of the parts of France that were severely damaged, just to make sure that these two leaders know the extent of the damage, right, firsthand, right? Yep. So the damage and of course the historical circumstances being neighbors, you can't quite change the fact that Germany is your neighbor, a neighbor who uh, attacked previously, previously in 1870, 1871, the Franco-Prussian War. So you have these historical circumstances, you will need to rebuild your country. All this prompted the French to want a very harsh treaty. All right, they want one that Germany will learn the lesson. Germany will not be able to pose a threat. Okay, this wasn't what the British were prioritizing. All right, of course, the British, some of their priorities were, of course, to punish. Right, Britain also suffered casualties. Right, they participated in the war fully from start to finish, unlike some countries. Okay, but they were quite interested in a moderate peace. But this was the viewpoint of the leaders themselves when they were, of course, uh, having conversations with their constituents, the people living in their country. They wanted to make the Germans really pay. But realistically speaking, they understood that their relationship with the Germans were different. Of course, they wanted to maintain naval superiority. So there were aspects of disarmament that they really wanted to they wanted to enforce, but they wanted to resume trade relations. Okay, and they were wary of spread of communism. Right, a very weak Germany could lay the foundation of communism in Germany, and that could spread to Britain. Already, to them, Russia was inflicted with this particular problem, right? And America, their priorities were different. Wanted to promote self-determination and democracy. Okay, he was in his own, slightly, I wouldn't say bubble, but okay, his view was quite different from that of the European leaders. He, being an American, okay, they saw things quite differently. They don't really have to live with Germany at their doorstep. All right, so all in all, this paved the way for the TOV. Okay, key terms of the TOV, I'm not gonna belabor. I think most students are fine with this. There were territorial terms. All right, Rhineland demilitarized, returning back Alsace-Lorraine. You have the war guilt clause. All right, where Germany had to take complete blame, and in so doing would have to pay the reparations to the tune of $6.6 billion. Okay, the military terms, all right, and of course the okay, self-determination, right? The principle of self-determination was not really extended to the Germans. Therefore, the Germans later, let's have a look at the map, found themselves living in different parts of the country, right? So here we have a map of Germany. It's not so clear, but we'll do our best. Okay, we can see Germany here. Some of the things that I can point out. Okay, you see Danzig here. Okay, you see that actually there's a part of Germany separated in order to give Poland. Okay, this is Poland, to give Poland access to the sea. All right, Germany. There's part of Germany that was carved out and given away. I'm pretty sure self-determination wasn't quite imposed there. So Danzig, later Hitler makes claim for Danzig in World War II. So this is called this area is called East Prussia, right? Proper German territory. Okay. There's also Sudetenland here, all right. In this part, okay, I'm quite going ahead of myself, but most of us here would have, we're doing this as revision, so you would have known that Sudetenland, Germans there. One another military term was that Austria will not be able to unite with Germany. Austrians themselves are very much ethnically German. They speak German, German cuisine. Hitler was born in Germany, but because of some historical circumstances, you know, Austria had decided not to be part of Germany when Germany was experiencing their unification. Right, SAR was to be ruled by the League of Nations. All right, as part of facilitating reparations to France. SAR was a very rich coal field, and of course there was all of Rhineland demilitarized as a way to provide safety or give France the assurance that Germany will no longer be a threat. So that would be a military term. There were other territories as well, but I think there enough has been illustrated to showcase or demonstrate the terms of the TOV. We come back, we'll look at the okay, we've looked at the key terms. All right, reactions of Germany. I think you could pretty much predict how it would be like. Right, each term you need to consider what the reaction was like. Okay, what the impact was like. Pretty much a lot of frustration. Right, that sense of being treated unfairly because they were not the guilty party, especially for Germans who really had very little to do with the outbreak of the war in the first place. Right, so a lot of different types of impact in terms of feeling a sense of vulnerability, facing economic hardships, okay, facing humiliation, and feeling a sense of displacement as well, especially for those who found themselves living in other territories. So, which brings us to the judgment, all right? The judgment, which I've already tried to link to a lot earlier, the sense of, all right, was it fair or unfair, right? So you need to be able to reason out both sides. I think that is one of the, I would say, but I consider it to be a highlight of learning this subject, okay, to see, right, to be able to respond to such inquiries about the duality of or the multiple perspectives that certain historical events do provide for, all right, to train your critical thinking. So why exactly would it have been argued that it would have been fair, and why it could possibly be unfair as well? Right, the fair bit I mentioned was about right, the nature of how Germany conducted themselves throughout the war, the role they played in the outbreak of war, and okay, the treaty that they imposed on Russia. Unfair would be the possibly you can look at the scale of the TOV. Although you can argue that France wanted even harsher terms. They wanted Germany to be divided into like 10 smaller states, but this was something that the British and the Americans were against. Right, unfair because if you look at how the TOV actually they cause more suffering on those who on the general population who have very little to do with the outbreak of the war, who have already been suffering for the past few years because of the naval blockade. So for those Germans especially, would feel unfair, and really the chief perpetrators of the war, the military brass, a lot of them kept their position. Hindenburg, Ludendorff, Hindenburg later became the president. The Kaiser, I wouldn't say lived happily, but he was in Luxembourg, and when the Germans actually when World War II broke out, they actually crossed into Luxembourg, and yeah, they didn't really welcome back the Kaiser, but he was given protection in that sense. Okay, so yeah, being able to see, to argue both sides is very important. Okay, then we are now going to look at the second aspect. Okay, one unique thing about the League of Nations, of course, is that it was actually a term of the TOV. All right, but let's look at the aims. Firstly, okay, we know that both collective security and disarmament, the intent is that it is to bring about a state of uh, international peace. Okay, they were supposed to work in tandem, right? To give people, I mean, doesn't matter which one comes first, both would have to be concurrent, but to promote disarmament, you need to give people the assurance of collective security that other countries will step in to support your country in difficult moments. Therefore, you feel confident not that there's no need to be armed to the teeth. And yeah, collective security would also only work if there was international a movement towards international disarmament, and you start placing trust on your neighbors. All right, because if you suspect that there's one country overwhelmingly powerful, you may not trust collective security because you know that people may not want to stand up to that bully. Okay, and of course the duality of collective security. Collective security was by design to deal with the system of alliances that actually caused World War II to break out. Disarmament was in response to the arms race. There we go. That's hideous. All right. So to respond to the arms race, that also played an important role. So essentially, we know that the League of Nations and the Paris Peace Conference, for that matter, were two events or two efforts in trying to ensure that the Great War didn't have a sequel, right? So yeah, they did not manage to do so. So those were the aims, the covenant of the League of Nations, and very quickly we'll talk about the three concerns that these are the three concerns. The ability to achieve disarmament, because when we talk about how exactly you can achieve disarmament, of course, we have the example of the Washington Naval Conference and later on the London Naval Conference. But again, both these conferences, the first conference at least was not actively promoted by the League of Nations. And to achieve disarmament, really after a war where everyone is heavily militarized, it was quite difficult. They managed to oversee German disarmament, but it was also quite difficult to sustain. Later on, we find out that Germany actually didn't fully disarm. Surprise, surprise. Even this is even before Nazi rule. All right, they carried out their weapons training or their military training in Russia. Right, they had a secret military alliance with Russia, Soviet Union, in the 1920s. Right. So yes, ability to achieve disarmament very difficult in era right after the war, in an era of distrust still. Ability to stop aggressor countries. So this would be looking into their peacekeeping measures. And we know that this would essentially be a lot of sanctions, right? Or we can call it embargo as well if you're more comfortable with that word. But essentially, the problem this had would be that the limitations of sanctions when you don't have America being involved. So same goes for whether they can actually, if they wanted to introduce, bring in their own soldiers to kind of force, let's say, Italy uh, out of Greece, to force Italy out of Abyssinia, to force Japan out of Manchuria. If you had a very large army to kind of like impose yourself on these countries, firstly, they didn't have that. They have peacekeeping measures like sanctions. and this was hindered or limited because America wasn't involved. So when we look at in the 1930s, when there were active attempts to actually impose sanctions on Italy for that matter, we learned that actually American companies were still trading with Italy, which blunted the efforts of the League of Nations. All right. Limited ability to stop aggressor countries really reduced their credibility, their sense of authority, and made it very hard for them to actually do much. Okay, membership of the League of Nations, USA did not join. That was a problem right in the beginning. Russia, okay, or USSR only joined later. I can't quite remember offhand now. Germany joined after the Locarno Pact in 1925, after they agreed to respect the borders. But yeah, later on, even Japan joined. Japan was a founding member, but they left. Germany joined 25, but left in 33, 34. So all this presented all the problems that they will face. Okay, so we also see, of course, the success and failures. Let's look at some examples. The League of Nations meets for the first time here in 1920, or they convened in 1920. The first thing on the agenda was a dispute between Germany and Poland over Upper Silesia. Okay, so because I already put the map, I'm going to show you the map. Map should look familiar. It's on your SLS. It's on your in your textbook as well. So this is where Upper Silesia probably is. So a dispute over some border region. Okay, Poland itself experienced a lot of problems. Poland was carved out from Germany and Soviet Union. Later, Poland also attacks Lithuania over Vilna. Okay, I didn't mention that in the timeline. Yeah, but Poland, actually for Poland, the war didn't like really end in 1919. They were still fighting here, fighting there. But they were able, this was a success. They were actually able to, all right, this was a success. I'm going to put it as a tick. They were actually able to resolve the dispute between Germany and Poland. All right, really because Germany right after World War One, they don't really have much international influence. Okay, Washington Naval Conference, okay, an attempt to promote disarmament. We'll take that as a success. French invasion of Rome, this is what sparked the hyperinflation in Germany. Why were the French so angry? Because Germany only managed to pay one round of reparations and failed at the next. All right, this caused all manners of problems. Okay, so this was a failure because actually that wasn't how it should have been done. But because France being one of the council members, right, it was quite difficult to punish. Again, when we see a council member, Italy, all right, really abusing their influence, okay, against the Greeks in this incident called the Corfu incident. Some Greek soldiers were killed. All right. Yeah, Italian soldiers were killed. Okay, well, they were on patrol surveying the Greek side of the frontier area. Italian leader Mussolini blamed the Greeks, demanded compensation, attacked and occupied Greek island of Corfu. Greece, of course, appealed to the League for help, but Mussolini insisted that this should be dealt with by the Conference of Ambassadors and not by the League. Right? Britain wanted to stand up to Mussolini. French wanted it resolved internally because they were in a dispute with Germany over the rule. So their own interests impeded or really made it difficult for them to deal with this in a manner. So already we see this as a pattern of behavior. The British and the French, when convenient, will allow the League of Nations to investigate, but when it's not convenient for them, they will try to circumvent, work around the systems, and then maybe allow the Conference of Ambassadors to look into this matter. Conference of Ambassadors, a lot smaller, and of course, a smaller group of people, and of course, each member would have more influence in this. So the Corfu incident really showed how Italy, because Italy, even after bombing the Greek island of Corfu, they were given full compensation and were not penalized in any way for the killing of innocents on the Greek island. Okay, so this was a failure. All right, we'll wrap it up with one success. Okay, the Greek-Bulgarian incident. Some Greek soldiers were killed on Greece's border with Bulgaria. Where are these countries? Right. So anyway, yeah. So there was quite a bit of issues. Okay, with Italy is here, Greece here, Bulgaria here. So now we're talking about the Greek-Bulgarian incident. Okay, Greek soldiers killed on Greece's border with Bulgaria. Greece then invaded Bulgaria. Bulgaria asked that the League intervene. League demanded both sides to stand down and Greece to withdraw. Uh, okay, Greece was of course unhappy with the decision the League of Nations made, but they actually complied. But of course, they were keen to mention how there was double standards because Italy tried to impose themselves on Greece, but Greece had to back down. And when Greece tried to do the same on Bulgaria, they were forced by the League to back down. So already the sense that, look, you are not being consistent. The league is not consistent, and this really compromises their credibility because they by design was supposed to look into the affairs for everyone, all right, to represent all members and not just the interests and needs of the leading members. Okay, so you need some examples for success, you need some examples for failure. Right, I think we have enough. Okay, I'm gonna stop the video now.